Cathay Pacific, recently caught in the whirlpool of public opinion, has been condemned by the whole country. This Hong Kong airline has blatantly discriminated against Mandarin-speaking passengers. As long as you don't speak English, you won't get good looks from the flight attendants. If you don't speak English, you can't use a blanket. They don't understand human language. It's hard to imagine that these words came from the mouth of the flight attendant. In our general impression, the flight attendant industry is polite and pays great attention to customer experience. How can they utter bad words for no reason? However, Cathay Pacific flight attendants dare to do this. Cathay Pacific flight attendant involved. They mocked the passengers wantonly because they spoke Mandarin. What's even more outrageous is that this is already a common thing for Cathay Pacific staff, and they don't feel that there is anything inappropriate about this behavior. Our national language has become the object of discrimination. On May 22nd, a blogger angrily broke the news that on Cathay Pacific flight CX-987, the flight attendants showed naked discrimination against passengers who could not speak English. It was clearly heard in the recording. A flight attendant told his companions in English with a smile, "If they can't speak English or blanket, they don't deserve a blanket." The cause of the incident was that there were passengers on the flight who could not speak English very well, so they asked the flight attendant to provide blankets in very poor English. Several flight attendants kept taunting passengers in English in the back cabin. The reason why they were unscrupulous was that they believed that the passenger who was ridiculed could not understand. Elderly people who can't understand Cantonese are also ridiculed by them as cannot understand human language. During the flight, they twittered and belittled the passengers. The blogger saw the injustice and couldn't bear it, so he chose to record and break the news. Screenshots of postings on the passenger's social platform. For passengers, the language they speak determines what kind of service they can enjoy in Cathay Pacific. The best service is for those who speak English, the second-class service is for Cantonese speakers, and the worst service is for Mandarin-speaking passengers. In their cognition, there are 3, 6, 9 grades of languages, and Mandarin is the worst one. One detail reported by some netizens is outrageous. Cathay Pacific's flight attendants discriminate against people who speak Mandarin. Even if you can speak English, if you speak Mandarin at the beginning, the attitude of the flight attendants will be very bad. This is not the first time Cathay Pacific has engaged in such language discrimination. It has a lot of criminal records. Complaints about this airline can be seen everywhere on Xiaohongshu and Weibo. The airline was founded in the 1940s by an American and an Australian. At that time, Hong Kong was still a British colony. After more than half a century, the company's shares have undergone many changes. However, the arrogance of foreign ancestry has never dissipated. Some companies discriminate against customers and just complain behind their backs, but Cathay Pacific likes to play a straight ball slap customers face to face. A flight attendant who used to work for Cathay Pacific revealed, "Every flight I flew before, as long as there are mainlanders, there must be ridicule in the kitchen. It has become the norm. So much so that some passengers declared excitedly, I can say unceremoniously that a garbage company like Cathay Pacific is still in business, and everyone here is responsible." After the May 22nd incident fermented, many netizens shared their previous experience of flying Cathay Pacific on the internet. Most of them were not very pleasant experiences, and it could even be said that they were insulted. A netizen recalled that when his bag was not put away, the stewardess reminded him impatiently in English and rolled his eyes. He just thought that the flight attendant's attitude was bad, so he didn't think much about it. However, the passenger soon discovered that the white people around him had not put away their bags, but the stewardess went up to serve them very attentively and with a smile on their faces. The front is arrogant and the back is respectful, just because the other party is a foreigner. This huge contrast shocked him. The traditional gentleness of the Chinese people makes us like to look for reasons from ourselves. Is it because we did not do well enough to waste other people's time, so we are blinded? However, the truth is right in front of you. People discriminate against you simply because of your skin color and language. The blogger who chose to break the news on the internet wrote on the social platform, "Since I sat down, I have been hearing the flight attendants in the back cabin complaining in English and Cantonese. I thought that I had been desensitized after living in Hong Kong for 11 years. But this kind of blatant discrimination made me feel like reporting this matter. That's the right thing to do. On the surface, they discriminate against Mandarin, a language, but in essence they discriminate against the region, culture, and people behind the language. Where do people who only speak Mandarin often come from? The answer is obvious. On May 24th, the Global Times spoke out on this matter. The Cathay Pacific incident is not an isolated phenomenon. Before Hong Kong's return to the motherland, there was a very popular TV series People in the Net, in which there was a character named Akan, which once became a discriminatory term for Hong Kong people against mainlanders. What kind of person is this Akan? He is from the mainland, speaks Cantonese with a mainland accent, has no culture, and swallowed 30 hamburgers in one go in the play. Akan in the TV series Man in the Net. In Hong Kong at that time, many Aborigines had a condescending attitude towards mainlanders. Compared with the rustic mainlanders, they speak English, eat Western food, and use coins with the Queen's face on them. These all give them a sense of superiority. The huge economic gap and living standard gap between the mainland and Hong Kong makes their discrimination so justifiable. However, times have changed. Today's mainland is no longer the mainland of the 1980s and 1990s. Today's Hong Kong is not the god of wealth that was high above in the early years. It has returned to the motherland and has become an inseparable part. The mainland's economic prosperity is no longer comparable to that of Hong Kong. The change in strength has not eliminated the fawning mentality and conceited mentality. I'm not as good as you, but I still look down on you. Because you can't speak English. Several flight attendants of Cathay Pacific Airways involved in the incident thought nothing more than this. They subconsciously think of themselves as an honorary white man, and even more that speaking English is an honor. Those English words entrust some people with nostalgia for the past glory of the empire on which the sun never sets. So, they don't even care much about Cantonese. Even if you turn the menu to the Chinese page and speak Cantonese at the same time, the flight attendant still answers in English. This is ideological resistance and hostility. Ideology sounds virtual, but it can actually affect the path choices of one generation or even several generations. When Long Yingtai gave a speech in Hong Kong, she once asked the audience what is the earliest Enlightenment song in life, and she thought she could get the answer she expected. Unexpectedly, a middle-aged listener told her, "I think of my motherland that many seniors took us to sing when I entered college." What he spoke was a not-so-standard Cantonese Mandarin. A big river with wide waves not only conquered the audience with plain language and moving tunes. Long Yingtai gave a speech at the University of Hong Kong, and the audience sang My Motherland in unison. Its real charm lies in the family and country feelings reflected behind the lyrics. In the vast land of China, there are many big rivers. At dusk, the old boatman will blow the trumpet and drive the boat on the familiar river, blending with the scenery. This is a beautiful motherland, where I grew up. In this vast land, there are beautiful scenery everywhere. In order to open up a new world, I awakened the sleeping mountains and changed the appearance of the river. Every word, let us infinite daydream. Everyone who has deep feelings for his country will definitely love his country's language. It can be said that this is a built-in language builder. It doesn't make that much sense. I think Chinese is the most beautiful language, not because of the tone or phonology, but because my blood resonates at the same frequency as it. English, for most Chinese, is a tool for dealing with the world and a window for understanding the world. If someone blindly worships English and belittles and discriminates against Mandarin, it can only be said that he may not want to be a Chinese from the bottom of his heart, but wants to be an honorary white man. Cathay Pacific seems to have recognized the seriousness of the problem. On the evening of May 23, Cathay Pacific issued a statement that it had completed the investigation into the incident and dismissed the 3 flight attendants involved. However, firing 3 flight attendants will not solve the problem. After the incident, someone suspected of being a flight attendant of Cathay Pacific Airways spoke on the internet, saying that the person who broke the news was a shameless villain who stole the recording, without any intention of repentance. To use the words to describe some habitual thieves, he does not regret that he committed a crime, he just regrets that he did not do careful and was caught by the police. When a cockroach is found in the house, there may already be several nests of cockroaches gathered in the corner. If the mentality of employees is not fundamentally corrected, then this incident will not serve as a warning. When the turmoil is over, the other flight attendants will even think that these 3 people are just unlucky, and no one will seriously make changes. Only strict rules and regulations, and strict punishment of every flight attendant who discriminates against passengers in the future can truly prevent similar incidents from happening again. Cathay Pacific, can you really give us an explanation? We will wait and see. Introduction. In the past 100 years, Chinese medicine has been in the predicament of encirclement and suppression. In order to find a way out, it has adopted the things of our nation and the East to move closer to the West. Then further scientific and modernization, the final result can only be self-destruction. Deng Titao, a famous doctor of Chinese medicine, once said, to revitalize Chinese medicine, there must be thousands of talents who can use Chinese medicine like President Li Ke to treat acute, severe, and difficult diseases, and then Chinese medicine will take off. Mr. Li Ke is the backbone of Chinese medicine. In his later years, Mr. Li devoted himself to the promotion and revival of traditional Chinese medicine. He once said that when treating a doctor in traditional Chinese medicine, one must use the thinking of Chinese medicine to examine the cause, the treatment, formulate prescriptions, and dispatch medicines, in order to obtain good curative effect. The real Chinese medicine is the golden key to overcome the world's medical problems. Deng Titao, a famous doctor of Chinese medicine, once said, to revitalize Chinese medicine, there must be thousands of talents who can use Chinese medicine like President Li Ke to treat acute, severe, and difficult diseases, and then Chinese medicine will take off. Mr. Li Ke is the backbone of Chinese medicine. In his later years, Mr. Li devoted himself to the promotion and revival of traditional Chinese medicine. He once said that when treating a doctor in traditional Chinese medicine, one must use the thinking of Chinese medicine to examine the cause, determine the treatment, formulate prescriptions, and dispatch medicines, in order to obtain good curative effect, and must not be influenced by the thinking of Western medicine and the pathology and pharmacology of Western medicine, otherwise one will unconsciously deviate from Chinese medicine. Track. The treatment loses the characteristics of traditional Chinese medicine and reduces the curative effect. He also warned that the most important thing in TCM syndrome differentiation and treatment is to stick to the etiology and pathogenesis in order to achieve curative effect. The medical sage Zhang Zhongjing said, look at the pulse and syndrome, know what is wrong with it, and treat it according to the syndrome. This is the 12-character mantra for medical treatment in traditional Chinese medicine. If you practice the mantra, you can understand everything, and you can deal with all kinds of diseases without change. 1. The real Chinese medicine is the golden key to overcome the world's medical problems. The Western medical community has proposed 10 medical problems that threaten human life, such as heart organic disease, cerebrovascular disease, including a series of symptoms of hypertension, tuberculosis, diabetes, series of diseases, immunodeficiency diseases, blood diseases, chronic renal failure. Wait, after more than 100 years of hard work, they have not succeeded and basically failed. Now it is up to Chinese TCM to do this answer sheet. Why did Western medicine fail? Not the method, but the idea, but the theory of knowledge. Their methods are very advanced, armed with modern cutting-edge science, and their understanding of local diseases is accurate to the molecular level. But they forget the living man, and that all diseases are only partial manifestations of a general disorder. Only see the part, not the whole. It is these 8 words that lead Western medicine into a dead end. Some Western doctors said to me, you talk about preventing diseases, just like a shield, and you have no good ideas for diseases that we can't do anything about. Of course these are all friends. I told them, I said, comrades, you are wrong, because you don't understand the history of Chinese medicine for thousands of years, and the 10 medical problems mentioned today are not unique now, but have existed since ancient times. As early as Zhang Zongjing's era and Sun Simiao's era, some important problems that threatened human health had been solved relatively well, and this was about 2,000 years ago. However, due to historical reasons, the inheritance of traditional Chinese medicine has broken down. The precious medical heritage has not been able to be inherited, especially in the past 100 years. Chinese medicine is in a predicament surrounded by siege. In order to find a way out, we have to use our nation's things and the East's things to move closer to the West. Then further scientific and modernization, the final result can only be self-destruction. These situations can be said to be obvious to all. In ancient times 2,000 years ago, it was not the West, but the East. The soul of life in Chinese medicine is the crystallization of Chinese cultural wisdom. The combination of the Book of Changes and the internal classic, instead of the combination of Chinese and Western medicine, is the theory of treatise on febrile disease and miscellaneous diseases. The medical sage Zhang Zhongjing founded the 6 classics, a complete set of principles, methods, and prescriptions based on syndrome differentiation, including all diseases in the 6 meridians, is the golden key to overcome the world's medical problems. 2. The brand has changed, and the curative effect has also changed. It should be said that I have been in contact with, studying, paying attention to and thinking about Chinese medicine for half a century. I remember when I was young, among my seniors, there were always well-known old Chinese doctors in the villages far and near. At that time, each county had several famous doctors in each county, and each province had several famous doctors in each province. Their thunderous fame was not promoted by TV or newspapers, nor was it named by any level of government, but by their actual treatment. The miraculous curative effect of the disease was spread by word of mouth and agreed upon by the common people. Although they don't have such dazzling titles as professor, director, and expert, and they don't have any special subsidies from the government, most of them are still unknown, but they are indeed pure Chinese medicine practitioners. The common people know very well which one of them has what kind of work and what specialty they have, and the flow of chariot sellers is no exception. At that time, it was not difficult for the common people to find a good Chinese medicine doctor to see a doctor. As the saying goes, there is no fragrant grass anywhere in the world. However, with the passage of time, the older generation of famous doctors passed away one after another, and this situation gradually faded away. Now when you turn on the TV, open the newspaper, and walk into the hospital, professors, directors, and experts of Chinese medicine rush to you. The propaganda of the modern news media is not only powerful, but also the methods are constantly being refurbished. It is really thousands of households are pupils every day, and new peaches are always replaced by old ones. But what is disappointing is that the brand has changed, and the curative effect has also changed. The rumors of the miraculous curative effect of traditional Chinese medicine are becoming less and less in my ears. Instead, people say that it is too difficult to find a good Chinese medicine doctor now. There was a helpless sigh. Now needless to say, it is not easy to find a famous Chinese medicine doctor like in the past, even to find a so-called pure Chinese medicine doctor who does not issue laboratory tests, checks, and takes the pulse seriously and sees a doctor according to the thinking of Chinese medicine. 3. There are only 3 or 5 people who can use TCM thinking to see a doctor. Since 1984, I have been in charge of the publication of Chinese medicine books at Shaanxi Science and Technology Publishing House. Because I have been fascinated by Chinese medicine since I was a child, I have a passion for and dedication to Chinese medicine, and I am a Chinese medicine practitioner, so I am determined to use this journalism. The profession contributes to the revitalization of traditional Chinese medicine. In the past 15 years, I have led my colleagues in this agency to travel all over the country, and actively organized and published medical books focusing on traditional Chinese medicine. In 1994, Publishing Reference announced the famous books in the minds of readers, and Shaanxi Science and Technology Publishing House, which lives in a corner, was listed among them. But to be honest, among the thousands of Chinese medicine books published by our agency, there are no more than 10 that really make me feel that they have practical value and can be played with at hand. Among the hundreds of authors of Chinese medicine books I have come into contact with, according to my observation, there are only 3 or 5 who can use Chinese medicine thinking to see a doctor. 15 years of hard work is not normal, but this is the result. This has really become where to find grass at the end of the world. In 2005, I cured the chronic eczema of Jason's daughter, the sponsor of the Australian embassy. I was grateful and invited me to see a doctor in Australia. I said, "No, I don't understand English." Unexpectedly, after hearing this, he said to me solemnly, "You are wrong. We Australians only seek medical treatment from Chinese medicine doctors who cannot speak English. We think such people are authentic Chinese medicine practitioners." I was surprised by this statement. 4. This time it's a real Chinese medicine doctor. At the end of the second year, when I set foot on the land of Australia, I seemed to understand something. On that day, I had a discussion with my classmates in the Department of Chinese Medicine of a certain university, and I learned that their teaching model was completely copied from ours, that is, both Chinese and Western, and they also had the problem of finding employment after graduation, and even couldn't find a place for internship. But everyone knows that there are many Chinese medicine clinics in Australia. How can we not find a place for practice? I asked Lu Chaijing, Secretary General of the Australian Society of Traditional Chinese Medicine and Acupuncture with this topic, and he said, "They," referring to the graduates of the University of Chinese Medicine, "do not know anything, so our clinic refuses them to come for internships. We know that Australia is the first country in the world other than China to recognize traditional Chinese medicine, and it is the first Western country to give traditional Chinese medicine a higher status. The Chinese medicine doctors in their Chinese medicine clinics are only allowed to prescribe Chinese medicine, not Western medicine. They have all become pure Chinese medicine. No wonder I only talked about the experience of traditional Chinese medicine thinking and medicine. After hearing this, they exclaimed, "This time, the real Chinese medicine has come." The past is like smoke, and the elegant demeanor of Chinese medicine that I personally experienced when I was a child has become a distant memory. But today, I began to hear the term true Chinese medicine from foreign colleagues, and the term authentic Chinese medicine from the foreigners I came into contact with. When I went to the United States in 1996, I also saw that the subject of the Chinese medicine examination in some states included the main classic by Wang Shuhe, which we had not seen for a long time. As everyone knows, on our side, pulse diagnosis has almost become deaf ears no matter from teaching or clinical practice. Why do foreigners pick it up again? Don't they want to go back to basics when we want to say goodbye to the old and welcome the new? Now, I saw the debate in the newspapers about cultivating new Chinese medicine practitioners or pure Chinese medicine practitioners, but it was also tit for tat. Facing the right and wrong of Chinese medicine practitioners, it made me, an ordinary Chinese medicine practitioner, feel uneasy. Therefore, I wrote the above memoirs, although they are superficial and sporadic, but after all I have heard and seen, I dare not make up, hoping to give people a little enlightenment. No matter how busy you are, please take 1 second to put it in your circle. Maybe your friends need to know this too.
The former Cathay Pacific flight attendant broke the news and revealed more inside stories. Which places in Hong Kong are best to speak only English? Long press to follow. The former Cathay Pacific flight attendant broke the news and revealed more inside stories. The carpet English discrimination theory put Cathay Pacific on the hot search list. This incident aroused heated discussion and indignation on the internet. And many netizens also set off a memory killing. And they all exposed their past experience of discrimination by taking the opportunity. Some netizens said, "Isn't this their usual style?" When I flew to Singapore in 2015, the flight attendant rolled her eyes when an aunt next to me spoke Chinese. And I laughed when I spoke English. Some netizens are puzzled, shouldn't planes flying in China speak Chinese? Although Cathay Pacific issued a statement expressing apology, and announced in the evening that it had fired the 3 flight attendants involved. However, in the face of turbulent public criticism, Cathay Pacific still has a long way to go to improve its service quality and improve its value system. Behind it is the British rich family controlling the field. Discriminatory remarks not only exposed the professional ethics and service capabilities of some Cathay Pacific employees, but also reflected the company's internal management problems. In fact, Cathay Pacific has always been positioned as an international airline on the development of Hong Kong. In the official annual report since its establishment 76 years ago, it has owned 222 aircraft and has 21,700 employees worldwide, 80% of which are from Hong Kong. According to the International Air Transport Association, as 2019 World Air Transport Industry Statistics Report, the Cathay Pacific Group was the world's largest international passenger airline and the 3rd largest international cargo airline before the pandemic. Business contacts with China allowed him toward the first spot of gold and GR.
Some time ago, major companies such as Tencent, JD.com, and Ali announced layoffs one after another. Huawei would rather risk compensation of 1 billion yuan than lay off nearly 7,000 people in China, most of whom are over 34 years old. According to reports on the internet, Ali employs more than 250,000 people, and 30% of employees are rumored to be laid off. Tencent has more than 100,000 employees, and the reported layoff ratio is 10%-30%. The proportion of layoffs in many departments of Jingdong is between 10% and 30%. In addition to the internet, the education and training industry, real estate, etc. are also in depression, facing a crisis of transformation almost overnight. For a while, people were in panic. Some time ago, major companies such as Tencent, The Times abandon you and won't say hello. Just like a pig with the sand, if you don't have the ability to adapt to the changes, you may drown when the next tide comes. The ups and downs of wealth are never just a few strings of numbers, but the chance of a generation. Some people drowsy with a wine bottle in the old world, while others have seen the rising sun of the new world. This time I will introduce a friend to you. I believe his road to wealth will inspire you. 01. His name is Li Fang, post 90s. At the age of 19, he was admitted to the Central University of Finance and Economics with excellent college entrance examination results, majoring in insurance and finance. At the age of 21, he was admitted to the University of Virginia, the third-ranked public university in the United States, to study for a double degree in economics and financial mathematics. 26 years old, earned 15 million yuan through investment. At the age of 28, he founded a company with a valuation of 200 million yuan. What looks like a glorious resume is actually a life of constant counterattacks. Li Fang was born in Hebei, and his family was very poor when he was a child. In 2009, he was admitted to the Central University of Finance and Economics with excellent grades, and was later admitted by the University of Virginia, the third-ranked public university in the United States, to continue his studies abroad. The road to study in a foreign country is too difficult. In order to save living expenses, Li Fang often has to ride a bicycle for 2 hours to go to class, and then go to the library to work in the evening. By chance, he met the most important person in his life, Julian Robertson, the godfather of American investment. He is the founder of Tiger Fund, the second largest hedge fund in the world. He created an investment legend of earning 20 billion yuan with 8 million yuan. He is as famous as Buffett and Soros. Julian Robertson, with over $36 billion in assets under management. Source, CNBC. From then on, Li Fang began to study his investment methods and listen to his lectures. After playing around with financial products on the market, Li Fang came up with his own methodology. This methodology has made his investment almost unfavorable. Soon, Li Fang earned the first 15 million yuan in his life. When he graduated, many Wall Street investors offered an olive branch. But he made a bold decision, to return to China for development. 02. After returning to China, Li Fang became the head of the Investment Advisory Center of NetEase. During this period, he discovered a phenomenon that many people work for a lifetime and earn dead wages, but in the end they cannot afford to buy a house or get married. And what about those who can afford a house and are married? Worried about mortgages, worried about children's education, and bent over under the pressure of firewood, rice, oil, and salt. Li Fang thought that if he hadn't earned 15 million yuan because of his investment, he might be like them now, living his life at a glance, struggling to make ends meet every day. Chen Haiwu, a professor at Yale University, also pointed out, why are many people hardworking but not rich? The important reason is the lack of financial knowledge and methods, let alone financial knowledge, investment and financial management. It is a pity that in China, financial investment education is not in place. Based on this, Li Fang quit his high-paying job at NetEase and decided to start a business. In order to allow more ordinary people to control their own lives through property allocation, Li Fang founded Yuxiu Academy. In the first year of the company's establishment, it helped 100,000 plus ordinary people achieve investment progress, and its valuation exceeded 200 million. And won the Influential Education Brand of the Year award for 2 consecutive years in 2020 and 2021. In 2022, it will be recognized by the central media. Won the 2022 Credibility Education Brand of CCTV. Among teacher Li Fang students, there are business owners, executives of well-known companies, as well as mothers and elderly people who are nearly 60 years old. Through learning, you don't have to worry about the daily food and drink expenses at home. With spare money in hand, reward yourself with a new iPhone. As a fledgling, use the extra income to buy a house for 5 years. There are also people who have spent more than half of their lives through property allocation and paid the down payment for Mercedes-Benz. Many people have changed decades of wealth concepts and their own lives because of Mr. Li Fang's lessons. Gap in wealth between those who can invest and those who cannot invest within a 10-year timeline. If you want to make yourself rich, don't think about just relying on basic salary, but learn to let the income on hand add value to you. Put it in your hand for 1 year, 10 years, it is still 10,000 yuan, and based on the current inflation rate, 10,000 yuan in 10 years is equivalent to about 4,850 yuan now. That is to say, the value will shrink by half above. In the bank, the interest is less than 200 yuan, not even enough to buy a new dress. But if you invest, you may earn half a month's salary. However, this is only 10,000 yuan, what if it is 100,000, 1 million? The same principle, different processing methods, the income generated is very different. Years old this year, and I invest 1,500 yuan a month. Guess what will happen in the end? At the age of 40, you may have 276,000, and you don't have to worry about your children's education expenses. 889,000, and it is not a problem to provide for yourself. 2.25 million, and traveling around the world is no longer a dream. Comparison of income from different asset allocation methods. Taking the annual interest rate of 10.05% as an example, the calculation formula, total principal and interest equals principal asterisk, 1 plus interest rate, caret number of periods. The above is the financial management income model under the ideal state. This is the end of the full text. If you like it, please click looking or share it in the circle of friends. Wang Ye said that the financial news, the world pattern has changed dramatically. Just the day after, 9th, according to the latest data released by Acorn Macro Consulting, a British macroeconomic research company, at the level based on purchasing power parity, the BRICS group composed of 5 major developing economies in the world accounts for GDP, accounted for more than the group of 7, G7. Wang Ye said that the financial news, in terms of specific data, the BRICS group including Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa contributed 31.5% of global GDP. Meanwhile, the group of 7, G7, comprising the US, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan and the UK, together accounts for 30.7% of global GDP. In other words, the total GDP of the 5 BRIC countries accounted for more than the proportion of the G7 in the global GDP. At the same time, analysts also said that with the strong economic growth of China and India, and more countries are interested in joining the BRICS, the GDP gap between the two groups is expected to continue to widen in the future. Example, just earlier this year, Russian Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov said that a dozen countries expressed interest in joining the BRICS, including Algeria, Argentina, Bahrain, Bangladesh, Indonesia, Iran, Egypt, Mexico, Nigeria, Pakistan, Sudan, Syria, Turkey, United Arab Emirates and Venezuela. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia, Egypt and Bangladesh have acquired stakes in the BRICS financial institution, the BRICS New Development Bank. It is worth mentioning that Wang Ye said Kaijing noticed that just last year, the BRICS countries proposed to create their own currencies in order to get rid of the US dollar and the euro in mutual transactions. Coincidentally, at the beginning of this month, Alexander Babakov, deputy chairman of the Russian State Duma, said that BRICS member countries are considering creating a new form of currency. Presented at the BRIC Country Leaders Summit. What do you think of it? What do you think will happen next to the GDP of the BRICS countries, the GDP of the G7 and the proportion of the prime ministers to the global GDP? Thank you for reading and watching. Welcome to leave a message and comment. If you like our articles and videos, you can directly like and recommend them below.